so he'll be absent. Excused. Please call the roll.
Representative Allred?
Here.
Representative Andrew?
Here.
Representative Berger?
Aye.
Here.
Representative
Here.
Brown is excused. Representative Claston?
Here.
Representative Lawley?
Here.
Representative Obermuller?
Here.
Representative Provenza? Chairman Northrup?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. So we're here for Senate File 61. Everybody understands the rules? We have, okay, everybody's gonna be nice, play by the rules. No cheering, no clapping, all those other things that we don't do. Okay, Senate File 61, this is Representative Andrews going to present it, so it's all yours. Take it away. Walk us through the bill, if you would, please, and give us a background.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring to you Senate File 61, and I would like to ask if I could turn over the explanation of the bill to Ms. Carrie Klein.
Certainly, go right ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Carrie Klein with the Wyoming Public Charter Schools Association, and President Driscoll was unable to be here this afternoon, so I will do my best to walk you through this and give you any of the background that you might need. Given the great work that was started last year on the charter schools, there are a couple of cleanup items that came up over the interim during the work of the new State Authorizing Board, and the Department of Education and charter schools got together and we're looking at how we could do a couple of tweaks to help make that process run a little more smoothly. So if you'll go to your bill, I'll just quickly walk through it. You can see that it is not a very long bill. The first section, if you start on page 2, I guess technically it starts page 1 is the title, line 13, on to page 2, all the way through page 2 into page 3, line 2. And what that section does is allows 2 different ways for a charter school to act as a local education agency, specifically for the purposes of the federal funding, Title I, special education funds. District authorized charter schools may act as an LEA, so we wanted to ensure that the district authorized schools that already have agreements with their district and are working through their district for that function are still able to do that. The second piece of that, the charter schools that are authorized by the State Authorizing Board shall act as their own LEA. So those 3 schools that were approved will be the LEA for purposes of those federal funds. So that's the first section. The second section starts on page 3, lines 7 through 18. And what that does is ensures that when districts receive the payment from the state for their charter school within their district, that they pass that through on a timely fashion each month. The statute that's referenced there is the way that the state pays the districts for schools within, so it's just following along with that. And then there's language at the end there that says in accordance with an alternative schedule or terms agreed to by the school district or charter school as incorporated in that second reference is their charter agreement, their charter contract with the district. So that allows for charter schools and districts to also work together if a different timeframe makes more sense with them and they agree to that, or if it's in their charter contract with the district. And finally, Mr. Chairman, on page 3, lines 20, that is the repealer that removes the LEA status for the Charter School Authorizing Board. And that is the entirety of the bill.
Questions from the committee for Carrie or Andrew? Ocean, Representative Ocean. Representative Andrews. Anybody? Everybody understands what an LEA is? All right, very good. Thank you. Do you have a question? Go ahead.
Yep, Mr.
Representative
Chairman.
Berger.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Klein. And just on the back here, on page 3, lines 11 through 18, the district will help with distributing these funds. Is that kind of what we did with the BOCES as well? I mean, you know, will districts have to add more staff, or is it fairly easy for them to help with distributing these funds? Or should that go to the superintendent, the department ed, that board that oversees our charter schools?
Go ahead, Gary.
Mr. Chairman. Representative Berger, so I'm sorry for the confusion. The second section deals with the funding that's coming from the state for the ADM payments for the charters, not the federal funding. The federal funding will flow through the Department of Education.
Further questions for Ms. Klein? All right, we'll take public input. There we go, there's the department. Come on up. And welcome. Good to see you guys again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Trent Carroll, Wyoming Department of Education. Wanda Maloney is with me today. You just heard a great explanation of the bill, so I won't add anything to that. I just wanted to share that the superintendent supports this bill and wanted to give you guys an opportunity to ask us any questions that you might have.
Anybody in committee have any questions for the department? Go ahead, Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a quick question about, so can districts charge for any administrative fees that come with having to distribute or help charter schools in any way in terms of administration? Or is that something that the school district incurs as a cost?
Go ahead, Mr. Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, good question. Statute allows an administrative fee to be levied by the school district for district authorized charter schools, up to 3%. And it also allows the state authorizing charter board to assess a fee as well for the charter schools that they authorize.
Further questions?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Wait, almost got away. Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just the funding model of this, can you just tell us how that fits in when the state puts a school in and we have the recalibration process and all the modeling that's done? How does this fit into that?
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Oberbuehler, that's a big question, so I'm not sure how much time you want to spend in laying that out. But are you asking about the section in the bill that directs the flow of funding, or do you want a more thorough explanation of how charter school funding is generated in the model? So the section in the bill on page 3 that is created to clarify the timing of when the school district that receives the funds from the state or their local county treasurer has to distribute those funds. That's what's spelled out here, and it basically just says that they will follow the same payment schedule that the state follows to pay the district. So they are now expected to provide the funding to the charter school on the same schedule.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. That does clarify it for me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Further questions from committee? Okay, we'll try it again. Thank you. Anybody from the public like to comment on this bill? Please come up. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian Farmer, Wyoming School Boards Association. Mr. Chairman, as introduced, really there was no conceptual problems with the bill, but there were some practical implementation problems that did exist. However, the Senate was responsive to those issues, and with the amendments of the Senate, they cleared those up. So the very first thing that you should know that the Senate did is on page 2, starting at line 1 through line 9. There was a good amendment that they put forward that dealt with the reality of locally authorized charter schools. So in the original language, it said basically that, that the charter may be its own LEA. And so we wanted to separate and say, hey, when you have a locally authorized charter, there's already a contract in place. That charter is the agreement between the district and the locally approved charter. So we have to account for that. We have to recognize that that agreement is in place. And so this says now that that locally authorized charter is going to operate basically in accordance with whatever agreement they have in place. And then it's separated out and talked about then the state authorized charters, which really was what the bill was contemplating in the first place, was state authorized charters. So they took care of that problem of locally authorized charters versus state authorized charters was dealt with quite well. The other place that they really took care of a concern is on page 3 at line 16. They added the two words or terms. So in that provision G, lines 11 through 18, it basically says, hey, you're going to distribute money in accordance with a schedule that's already set out in statute. So school foundation payments come out periodically, and this just says you're going to follow that payment schedule that's set out in statute. The payments are going to flow through from the state to the districts. And it originally said, unless there were another schedule agreed on. But again, you might have that charter in place that sets out a different relationship. And in fact, in Cheyenne, there was a different relationship that was set out between the charter school authorized by the district and the district. So there's some truing up that has to happen before those funds flow through. An accounting of services that the district does provide. So to Representative Provenza's question from earlier, it is possible that either a district authorized charter or a state authorized charter could contract with a school district for the provision of certain services. And then in whatever relation to the contract there is there, that could potentially impact the flow of dollars. So it doesn't become automatic if there's another contract in place that parties have agreed on a relationship. So those were the two areas where there could have been some hiccups, but the Senate did a good job. They cleaned it up and they took care of those things. So we really have no remaining issues with the bill here. Certainly appreciate the work that the Senate did to take care of those issues. If we had a magical wand, that whole provision on page 3, the red underlined language, we'd love it if the money could just go straight from the state to the charter instead of having to go through the school district. But it would take a constitutional amendment to get there because of the language about how the funds can flow and the limitations on how those funds can flow. So while we wish that were possible, we recognize that that's not a realistic ask unless y'all want to change the Constitution, and that takes a long time. So we're good with where the bill's at. We're good with the terms here, and I feel like the issues that were present have been addressed.
Very good. Anybody have any questions for Brian? I for sure appreciate you clearing that up and letting us know where the Senate worked.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Public comment? Public comment. Anybody online? All right, we'll close public comment. Committee, what's your pleasure on the bill? Moved by Lawley. Seconded by Andrews. Does anybody have any comments or amendments they'd like to put on the bill? None appearing, will proceed to vote then. Please, Ashley, call a roll.
Mr. Chairman, on Senate File 61, Education Charter School Amendments, Representative Allred?
Aye.
Representative Andrew? Aye. Representative Berger?
Here. Aye.
Representative Brown has left an absentee vote of aye. Representative Claston?
Aye.
Representative Lawley?
Aye.
Representative Obermueller?
Aye.
Representative Provenza? Chairman Northrup?
Aye.
9 aye.
Very good, thank you. That bill has passed the House Education Committee, and we are now on Senate File 84. School facility use fees. Let's see. Do we have anybody here to present that? Oh, there you are. Thank you. Senator Brennan, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I have for you Senate File 84, School Facilities Use Fee. This came about because we have had issues with some districts in pricing sports clubs out of the school facilities and being able to rent them for their practices and such. And in a lot of communities, the schools are the only place that these kids can practice some of their sports. So I will take you to page 2 of the bill, which is where the majority of the bill is. And what this does is it asks that rental fees by a district that they do not exceed the direct incremental cost incurred by the district for the specific use of the property. Then under B, that it's supported by an itemized statement of the district's direct incremental cost for the specific use of the property during each rental period. And then C, that it be uniform for the same or similar use of the property. And that's basically the bulk of the bill. We're just asking that public facilities can be used by the public for a reasonable amount of money. And I stand for any questions.
Questions for Senator Brennan from the committee? Anybody? Go ahead, Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Brennan, how many districts that you know of are having this issue?
I don't have an exact number.
Senator Brennan, please go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Chairman Northrup, Representative Lawley, I don't have an exact number of districts, but I know that there's multiple districts in the state I know that have had this problem.
Thank you.
Other questions further? I see no questions from the committee. We'll take public input. Thank you, Senator Brennan. Department have anything to say? I think they left. Okay. Anybody else like to comment? Please come forward. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian Farmer with Wyoming School Boards Association. Also with me is Dr. Boyd Brown. Mr. Chairman, as we've talked about this bill with our members, there's a lot of concern over the bill. Our members pretty much feel like this is a matter of local control, something for local school boards to be working out with their patrons. Mr. Chairman, I think we have a real concern that there could be some unintended consequence of this bill. Specifically, page 2, when you look at line 20 and 21, it talks about a uniform fee for the same or similar uses of the property. And Mr. Chairman, I think I think there's a potential for unintended consequence. So many of our school districts have memorandums of understanding with the town or the city for use of facilities. So the recreation department from that city has an MOU, or the nonprofit potentially has an MOU that allows for free use. Sometimes there's an exchange of the use of the facility. So let's say that you have a club basketball team, and that club basketball team is charged for a use of a facility. Then the city potentially has, under that uniform charge, has to be charged the same rate that that club is, and there might not be the ability for that MOU, which had previously allowed for a free use or an exchanged use of facility. It would not be a uniform charge for the use of the facility. I know that Dr. Brown is going to talk about an email that you received from Michael Jennings. Superintendent Jennings is the superintendent in Casper, and Superintendent Jennings lays out in his email to you the number of hours that they have of outside use for school districts in Casper. And he talks about this idea of separate MOUs. And so what he's really trying to say in his email to you is we have a lot of agreements in place and a lot of users in place that allow for these use of our facilities in the Casper School District. And his concern is to that point, or at least one of his concerns is to that point of the disruption of the MOUs then could put us in the place where those literally thousands of hours, at least hundreds of hours of use could be disrupted. And we may have charges now for things that were mutual agreements. To further illustrate the point, I'd like to turn to Dr. Brown, who has served as superintendent in multiple Wyoming districts. And his perspective, I think, is unique because he's dealt with very large districts as well as very small districts, to talk a little bit about how different districts have different issues when it comes to how they choose to use facilities in their communities.
Mr. Chairman, Boyd Brown, Wyoming School Boards Association, again, been the superintendent from Laramie, number 1 to Sheridan, number 3, so the largest and smallest district in the state, also in Campbell County. I think each district deals with things in a different way. I think the email that you received from Superintendent Jennings and Casper talks a lot about some of the state-run tournaments that they do, some of the other things that they do, working with their community college. Again, as I was in Campbell County, one of the gyms at Thunder Basin High School was actually built by the city so that they put that money in to the school so that they could use that after hours for City League basketball and those kind of things. I know that at least down here in Laramie 1, that there's a memorandum of understanding and work with the community college to not charge back and forth there. I think there's just a lot of agreements out there that different districts have. In Sheridan 3, the rec district there and the community have some agreements about using the school and also using the rec district in Claremont. So I think there's a lot of things that you have to look at if you're looking at trying to make things uniform across the board for everyone. And I think that each district gets into those specifically based on their needs. I know that over in Albany 1, that the University of Wyoming uses the high school swimming pool, and I don't know exactly what the agreements are there, but I'm sure that they have agreements back and forth. So I think it's just difficult for the state legislature to mandate one uniform cost across the board. And with that, I would answer questions. I could go on and talk about different things all day on that.
Go ahead, Representative Obermiller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in this bill, is the only thing that you are objecting to is that section C, line 20? Is that the focus of your testimony, and the rest of it is fine in your opinion?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I again started with the notion that our members believe it's a matter of local control, that it's best determined at the local level. Our specific objection is to that section C. So philosophically, believe it's best for this to be a local decision. However, our specific objection here is to that subparagraph C.
Follow up,
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Chairman.
follow up.
So just in reading that line, I'm not sure what we may find out from other witnesses on what the uniform is really trying to get at. But in your opinion, would it improve this if it said not to exceed the same or similar use of the property?
Go ahead, Brian.
Mr. Chairman, no, I think the example I gave before of basketball, thinking about basketball, that is the same use of the facility. You might have one league who has just a tournament, a one-time tournament, and may be charged by the district for the use of the facility for that tournament. The exact same use, basketball, might be a city rec basketball use, And there might be an agreement between the city and the school district of, hey, we're not going to charge you for the use of our facilities, and we ask that you not charge us for the use of city facilities in return. Sort of this cooperative agreement. So your exact same uses, your exact same cases would result in different fees. One has a no cost because of an MOU or an agreement. The other has a cost focused on the related costs of putting on that event.
Follow-up, Mr. Chairman.
One more, go ahead.
So not to exceed, wouldn't that contemplate no fee?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure where you're placing the not to exceed. Be uniform for the same or similar use of the property. That's where I'm running into the same use of the property may be free or it may have the cost. But if you're saying not to exceed the paragraph A, then maybe that helps. I'm not sure where the not to exceed falls in.
Okay, follow-up, Mr. Chairman. So I think that we can find some wordsmithing that accommodates what you're trying to get at with the no fee situation. Apparently that wording that I'm saying isn't really maybe the right wording, but I think we can find it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was an event up in Sheridan by one of the political parties, and I believe that they charged, I think it was at least $20 a ticket. And so part of my concern here, I guess, is if we pass this and someone can host an event and make a bunch of money off of their event, in a facility, then the school district can only charge what the cost of the event is to them. So again, having someone who has ticket sales for an event that they're using the facility from the school, how do you see that fitting in this bill?
Go ahead, Brian.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think there are concerns about incentives and disincentives for uses of facility. I think to the degree that an outside user would charge a ticket price, that would disincentivize a use of some other facilities. So I think that would be a case perhaps similar to that. One of the concerns that we did here was with recreation facilities, specifically private recreation facilities, that it would not make sense for, say, a business person to start a recreation facility because I have the infrastructure cost of maintaining my private recreation facility. If I could do my events through use of the school facility, it would be better for me to not build that additional facility because I would have the use of the school district facility without the infrastructure cost. So I think there are possibilities for incentives or disincentives. I know that districts try to contemplate what potential uses are and put guidelines around those. But I wouldn't know for sure the total number of possible case uses.
Representative Lawley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate, Mr. Farmer, the discussion about local control, but we often find ourselves in this legislature with people coming from districts where they have tried to interact with district leaders and they feel they're not heard. We encountered those together over my first session here. So I received a number of letters from parents and who said they had tried to solve these problems at a local level. So what would you say to them? I mean, that they have not been able to accomplish some sort of resolution, some sort of understanding. So what do we say to these parents?
Go ahead, Brian.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Lawley, I think that is a compelling case. I've been that parent, coached my kids' teams, had Girl Scouts and wanted to use school facilities for different sorts of things. And I guess my advocacy, my case would be that it is important to work through the chain of communication with your local school district. And so in every single district, that looks a little bit different. But the chain of communication idea is to start at that lowest level possible. So if that is your building principal, have that conversation, that communication, because that might be the principal of the school that your kids are in, and talk about, can we use this? How can we use this? And when that conversation is not fruitful, then you carry that on to your district leadership, and you have the conversation with your district leadership. And if that conversation is not fruitful, then you take it to your school board as the elected body representing the public interest in education in that community. If you're not happy with the school board, then you elect a new school board, the same as if you're not happy with the legislature or any other elected body and the decisions that they make. And so it does become difficult for that individual to advocate, because it now becomes me against a system. But having been a school board member, I can tell you that when those cases came to me, when those concerns came to me, I was very interested in that parent perspective. I could relate to that perspective, and it was my desire to try to find that common ground. Now, from the seat that I sit in, it is my advice to a district to create policy so that this doesn't become a case by case sort of thing, that you have policy to guide your decisions. And it becomes clear and it becomes transparent to your community what are the things that we are charging for. If you can publish a schedule of fees, that becomes clear to your community. And it behooves you as a school district to create that positive relationship with your community. But I also know that community members are going to have different interests. Sometimes you can have somebody advocating for one use and somebody advocating for a different use, and one of them is going to end up unhappy because you're going to make a decision one way or the other. That's the nature, I guess, of a political entity or political organization, is it is not possible to please all of the people all of the time. But I think good governance looks that way. Good governance looks like listening to your constituents, seeking to provide remedies for your constituents, and ultimately being transparent with things like policy to help make that process clear. And I think that then leads to the better positive relationships with your districts. It doesn't solve every single case, but that would be my suggestions.
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you have any reason to believe that the parents in this room that we've gotten letters from did not follow that chain of communication you described?
Go ahead, Brian.
Mr. Chairman, I have no reason to believe that.
Thank you.
Representative Clauston, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gentlemen, last year from the same district here, we had a senator bring us 2 bills to try to solve problems here in this district. And we shot them down because it was a local control issue. We didn't want to affect the whole state, trying to fix this problem here in this district. In my district at home, we let most people use our gym space for free, unless there's a huge cleanup. I guess what I don't want to do, and I want to know, is there any risk if we pass this? What I don't want to do is in my district now, we have to start charging people to use our facilities when we're not currently doing that. We let all the sports teams, local teams use that for free. Passing this the way it is, do you see a risk of having to start charging teams in other parts of the state to fix this problem here at this district?
Go ahead, Brian.
Mr. Chairman, yes, I do believe that with the way that we read that subparagraph C, that is the exact risk, that it leads to possible charges. In the case of your home district, I don't know what you do with the gym in Thunder Basin where you have an agreement in place. I think that could become very complicated. So passing it as is, I believe, leads to that problem. That paragraph C is the most problematic piece of the statewide issue. If you left A and B, you still have potential language of having guidance around what that cost is based on. But when you say be uniform for the same or similar use of the property, you run into the potential of subterfusing agreements that are in place that allow for free use. It becomes either all charge or all free.
Further questions? Further questions, anybody? Go ahead, Representative Andrews.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. My question is that as I read this, it doesn't necessarily say they have to charge a fee, but it does say that if they do charge a fee, it has to be equal. And I don't see how that precludes them from not charging a fee under those agreements. But when they do charge fees, having them be, relatively equitable. So my question is, where are you understanding that if they were to have an agreement where it was free, that then it would have to be free for everybody?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Farmer.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that in the agreements, it talks about the waiver of fee. And so the contemplation is that the fee exists, the fee is uniform, but that fee is waived by agreement. So that is a matter of grace or a matter of cooperation or a matter of something else that you are waiving a fee. It's not that a fee does not exist. The fee exists, but the fee is waived by matter of agreement.
Follow up? Nope. Anybody else? Further questions? All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yep, fill the chairs up. Go ahead, please. Remember, state your names for the record.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Joe Melcheski here in Cheyenne. It's my son Hunter right there, who did we the people in this room. I told him to come and it would be like real the people. I coach a sixth grade junior tribe basketball team here in Cheyenne. It's a volunteer nonprofit. We're not even structured as a nonprofit. It's just me sending text to players' parents. I think that's how most of these things work. And I can tell you this is a problem. Our school district charges anything from $12.50 an hour up to $25 an hour for gym time. And then they have the option to add in administrative costs and custodial fees that can take that above $50 an hour. It's not just a Cheyenne problem. In response to your question, Representative Lawley, talked to a basketball coach who runs a similar program over in Laramie. He's getting charged $65 to $85 per use to try to get into schools up there. Goshen County can be $100 a use. Sheridan County has $25 an hour, but it often gets waived. And that's one of the things we see around the state is districts put in policies to charge, and they may or may not forgive all those fees. In some cases, they do. For instance, Campbell County, they do. Natrona County, I've talked to coaches, they do it there, where they have a policy, but they waive the fees because they understand they're public buildings and they want kids in there. And I think what that shows is this works without charging fees. If those districts can make it work, then it ought to work for everybody. Our real point in this is that these are public buildings. They're already there. And in a lot of towns, they're the only recreation facilities that are available. The legislature's already funded the schools. They're built, the gym's there, the pool's there, the football field is there. Whether my kids are in there practicing for an hour at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon doesn't raise the cost to a school district for the O&M costs at all. And yet we still get charged these fees that keep us out of the gyms. So just for a little perspective, our program, it costs us about $3,000 to run for a basketball season. A big chunk of that is entry fees when you join tournaments, but half-ish is school rental fees to get practice time. And it's part of the deal. So we pay those costs because we don't have any option, but I wanted to give you some sense of the scale of the problem and what we're dealing with. On the language that you heard about potentially being a problem on fees being uniform, as we read that, it limits the district. It doesn't set a statewide price. It says just to a district, if you're charging X for basketball, everybody has to get charged X for basketball. And what we see in a lot of instances is one team will get charged $50 an hour and another team won't get charged anything. And so that is where the uniform fee language comes from. It doesn't apply statewide. It applies to the individual district policies. And so that's why that piece was in there. And then one other point on the not to exceed piece, 0 would fit in there. So it leaves it up to the discretion of the districts. It's not to exceed the incremental costs that we incur by being in the gym, but that leaves the door open for a district not to charge anything. I don't think that provision limits what Campbell County or some of the other districts are doing in not charging fees. So I'm happy to take any questions, but thank you for listening. And this is a problem that is around statewide, and hope you'll move it forward.
Representative Lawley has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have you asked the district why there's this disparity and some teams are charged amount, some teams charge less or nothing? Or, I mean, is there some rationale they've offered for why they do it that way?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, sir.
We have, and I have directly. Without being too blunt about it, the district just simply is not responsive. They make it very, very difficult just to request gym time. Sometimes you don't get an answer back at all. You know, they have a internet system, you have to show that you have insurance, all these things. And then you never get a response back when you request time. So sometimes we go to individual school principals, you know, somebody's mom on the team works in the office at a school. We've tried it that way, but the district is just remarkably non-responsive. And it's gotten to the point where open records requests have had to be sent in just to figure out why we're being told no.
Go ahead, Representative Overmiller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on that line 20 where it talks about the uniform, so is it your testimony that you want that language to stay just the way it's written with being uniform, or do you have any suggestions for an improvement to it?
Mr. Chairman, I would prefer it to stay the same. I think it helps. Part of that is because I think it's good policy, but part of that is also because the bill's through the Senate. Reading the tea leaves, it seems like there's a lot going on between the two chambers. I would prefer a clean bill to get out of the House, and then we don't have to go back for a concurrence. So, and I think it works. I think it provides districts the flexibility to charge 0 if they want to, and it only applies within the districts. It does not set a statewide policy.
I have a couple of questions. You said you had a $1,500 in rentals for how many practices is that?
Mr. Chairman, let's see, 2 to 3 practices a week, depending on how many tournaments we enter. So we start practices before Christmas. We practice well into April. So I didn't do the math exactly, but it feels like it ends up around there.
2 to 3 per week, okay? And you guys have insurance?
Mr. Chairman, I should clarify, we don't get to practice in public schools. I had to find separate gym space. There's a private gym. Sorry, I missed this point.
Yep.
We weren't able to get into the public schools. There's a doctor in town who built it's a pole barn and put down a gym floor and soccer field in it, and we rent out that space.
I see. And so you don't have insurance for your group?
Mr. Chairman, I did get insurance for the group to try. We were forced to take out $1 million liability policy just for the opportunity to apply to get the space. Was told no.
Okay. Further questions? Representative? Oh, okay. Representative Berger, go ahead.
I know in our district, we have many of these programs in our town, and the issue of liability came up in insurance, and that's why we go through our rec center with all our traveling teams, all our groups, and we go, from wrestling to band, to whatever activity it is. And the rec center creates a fee and goes through, and then they work through the district to use the space. The big issue for us in Evanston was liability and the liability insurance. So my question is, do you want the district to take on the liability when you go use that facility after school? Or is that what you're trying to get rid of, those liability fees? Or do you want to work with your, kind of how others are doing it through their rec center to help with that liability and then come around and kind of like those MOUs that we have, because we have a bunch of them in place. I just don't want to see that go away for my community. It works for us.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chair, the liability issue is key. It's not addressed in this bill. We talked about potentially trying to get it in the bill, but there was a lot of resistance to it. We didn't think it was necessary right away. It is something we would like to work on over the next year. I want to be clear, the fees that were being discussed in here are facility use fees. They're not insurance. And just a little background on the insurance piece, the districts require us to get $1 million in liability coverage, specifically indemnifying by name the district before we can even apply to rent a facility. So that costs a small business $300, $500, $750 a year in premiums. We do that because it's a necessary element to apply. However, I'm sure you all are aware, the state has a Governmental Claims Act. It pretty clearly, to me, limits liability claims against school districts at $500,000 per instance. The districts feel that their insurance carriers do not feel that's sufficient, and so they require additional policies on top of that. We're not fighting the insurance today. We already got our policies. We submit our policies. It's fine. We also sign all manner of waiver forms before we even try to get these things. I mean, the liability waiver forms that we sign are, they would choke a wood chipper. So we're all good signing those. We're good on waivers. We're good getting insurance policies. It's hard. What we want to address in this is the individual fees for facility rentals.
Questions from committee? Thank you, Joe. Please state your name.
Chairman, Ryan Clement from Cheyenne. I'm here today as a lacrosse coach, and this is my daughter Holly. She plays a lot of basketball. Cheyenne Tornado Lacrosse was started about 5 years ago. It's been growing ever since. We've got age groups from, I guess we've got 8 all the way through seniors in high school, both girls and boys. A lot of people don't know that we've got a lacrosse program here. So what we have to do is we have to practice at a park because we have no access to any of the school facilities. I've done everything that Joe's done relative to liability insurance, waivers. We've requested time. It's either denied or ignored for the most part. The other thing that's interesting about lacrosse, because there's not many programs nearby, we have to travel to Sheridan, Cody, and Jackson pretty consistently for our tournaments. And we use those school facilities when we travel. You should see the tournament fees for lacrosse. I don't know if they think that we're a different demographic or what, but I mean, ultimately, sometimes you're paying upwards of $750 or $1,000 a kid to go play on a school facility in some of these other places. So really, I just wanted to bring to you guys' attention that there's a big, wide, different, ecosystem of sports out there. I also do private quarterback coaching. I was a quarterback in college, and I've got kids that we take and try to get them places that they want to go out of high school to college, and I coach kids of all ages. I'll tell you, the gyms here in Cheyenne are the only place you can go to do any of those things. We can't do any of those things. And so I heard somebody talk about disincentivizing businesses. One of the other things I'm doing is building a racetrack out east of Cheyenne. And on that property, we're going to build a sports complex because it's a community amenity. It's absolutely needed because the community amenities that are publicly supported and funded are inaccessible. So it certainly is an incentive for us to build things like sports complexes. I appreciate your time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Anybody have questions? Questions for Ryan? Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Public comment?
Hello, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Please go ahead.
I think you all know
State
me
your name.
for my day job, but I'm not here for my day job. My name is Pete Obermueller. I'm here for you today as a volunteer soccer coach. And I won't repeat everything that Mr. Milczewski said, essentially ditto, with the exception of, for us, we can't even, most of our fees that we have at the soccer club in order to have a soccer club goes to the city of Cheyenne to just cover the use of outdoor fields. So doing the extra work that Mr. Milczewski's already done on the basketball side to have the liability and all that, we can't even get that far. So understanding that we're behind the eight ball there and not arguing that point. But we have to just rely on perhaps one of the kids on my team, parent works in the school or something, but we don't have another space in Cheyenne at all for winter practices. And in order to compete in the leagues we compete in, having that access is critical. Otherwise, we are just behind. Just 40 minutes south, where it's always 10 degrees warmer and the wind is blowing 20 miles per hour less. They can practice 4 more months out of the year than we can here. And that access is critical to soccer as well. And just, Mr. Chairman, I just want to introduce my daughter Lily, who is was on my team, sitting in the back watching as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Questions for Mr. Obermueller? Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Anybody else? Fill the chairs up, please. Welcome. Remember to state your name before you start, just as a matter of record.
Hi, my name is Sarah DeLay. I'm a parent and involved in Capital City Athletics, a local swim club. Local nonprofits have been impacted with fees being charged to use the schools. The need for community club involvement is growing exponentially. Municipalities in Wyoming do not have the funds to provide all the facilities for the growing need, all the way from Afton, Wyoming to Cheyenne. They rely heavily on public-funded school facilities for space. These multi-million-dollar facilities are sold as a community space, and every year there is mill levies also that help fund and maintain those spaces. Pools specifically are limited. Opportunities for lessons in competitive swimming can be difficult in Wyoming. Pools are expensive and they cost money, even when they sit there empty. Groups have been using facilities at Laramie County School District 1 specifically for decades and were blindsided by back fees and charges. Fees imposed on nonprofits drive up costs for families and limit opportunities for kids. The district should be working with the community groups and not closing their doors and sending bills. Groups have worked with the schools for years with no problem, and now they have to work with lawyers. The school district should work with youth organizations to serve our kids better. Lastly, nonprofit groups work hours beyond what the school district provides to have the open doors for kids at all economic levels. When there is no open door for kids, they choose a different path. The school is the easiest place for these kids to find small clubs and nonprofits at a low cost. And just a few comments on just a few things that were said. I mean, yeah, we could wait for an election, but is that what we do? We just wait for those kids to have the opportunity for another election, and then we have to go through this process with the school board and the administration every single time. This does not seem to disallow for the use of MOUs and working with the community. Their tier systems that they have in place with board policies can still be there. And this also just helps to lay a baseline across the state for administrations coming in that they have to follow this. So it just seems to set a good baseline. And then we can't compare the soccer club, the 3 people on the diving team, to the community college and the University of Wyoming. So that's where the problem lies. And yes, they have some leverage because they have spaces and the school district has spaces. If you have even just a music group that wants to come in and do something, they have no leverage on that. So I don't feel that comparing those is a very good thing to do.
Anybody have any questions for Carrie? Thank you for your testimony. Please go ahead.
My name is Case Reckling. I'm a competitive swimmer here in town, both for my high school team at Cheyenne Central and on the club team in Cheyenne, Capital City Athletics. I also act as an athlete representative, both on the board for my swim club, as well as I was also recently elected as an athlete representative to the board of Wyoming Swimming as a whole. The new bill regarding the imposition of rental fees by Wyoming school districts, I believe it has a very beneficial and positive change that will help all extracurricular programs, sports, and activities around the state. Requiring that the school districts only charge fair and equal fees to these outside programs is a very impactful change that will help athletes and participants in all sorts of extracurricular programs to have more access to facilities and a larger degree of success in achieving their goals. It's extremely important to club sports teams and other extracurricular programs that they have fair and equal access to use of these public school district facilities for a few reasons. For one, it promotes higher levels of inclusion and community by allowing the students and community members outside of the school's own programs to participate in activities with other young individuals in the community. Shared use of these facilities also helps to maximize cooperation between different groups and minimize use of unnecessary resources and unnecessary expenditures by these clubs and extracurricular groups to achieve their goals. Specifically for sports, allowing club teams to use functioning and safe school district facilities will continue to be beneficial for athletes and schools themselves, and actually benefits schools because they can develop more successful high school programs later on through club athletics and use of their facilities by the clubs to promote students using those facilities for sports and getting them more interested in competing in high school athletics when they're at that level. Overall, this fair use of school facilities proposed by the bill for extracurricular programs is really important, and I, as a representative of athletes in town and all around the state, know it is a good step forward to make sure school district facilities are accessible to the community for club sports, programs, and other extracurricular activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Case? Thanks, Case. Please go ahead.
My name is Amy Torderich, and I'm a parent of 3 girls in town that are a part of a local swim team, Capital City Athletics. And we as a family have certainly been experiencing Thank you. The consequences of the school districts charging additional fees to use the facilities. For decades, the use of these public facilities for youth-focused organizations without charges have been the status quo. But for the last several years, various districts across the state have been implementing fee schedules that are reducing the number of children to be able to benefit from our local schools. They've lost sight of the fact that these facilities are for our kids. As someone that was only able to participate in high school sports at the junior level, because when you grow up in Southern California, if you don't start swimming at 10, you don't swim for very long in high school. I have no idea why our high schools would be keeping our kids out of pools. Whether it's pools, whether it's soccer fields, this is good for our community, and we have tried at the local level. They don't answer our phone calls. They lock doors. We need your help, please.
Please go ahead, Representative Obermiller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this bill deals with setting reasonable fees, but it sounds like access is a problem that involves more than just fee schedules. It sounds like they're being blocked from use for other reasons. Is that true?
Go ahead.
Sarah, yep, it's okay. So I mean, we have to jump through a lot of hoops, and that's different on every district in the state, I'm sure, right? So if you have an MOU or if someone will come and talk to you, that's great. Maybe we can set that up. But yes, there are issues. I mean, you have to get the insurance before that, and then there's just a communication gap, which, I mean, just this moving forward is hopefully going to help that. And yeah, there are access issues just in general on top of that. And I just wanted to say, somebody asked about the cost. Right now we pay something, it's called a custodial fee. It's $37.50 an hour. And so if we were to pay that for the entire year, it'd be upwards of $21,000 for a local swim club. So, any other questions?
Go ahead, Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is that custodial fee? Do they give you guys an understanding of what that is at all?
No, sir, it's just a custodial fee. So I guess that's when the custodian, and so like with this bill, it says outside of those hours, or it's within the cost of what the school district is already incurring. And that's the thing, is so when the school district is occupied with, say, other school sports, and we may be occupying it at that time, like that time should be a reasonable time when someone's there, and yeah, so not necessarily, so.
Go ahead, Representative Lawley has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Amy talked a little bit about her interactions with the district. Could you elaborate, Sarah, a little bit on your interactions with the district or the school to try to understand what needed to be done and for you to have the access at a reasonable price?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through you, Representative Lawley. Yeah, we definitely have to get the insurance, and then there's security issues. So anybody that's in the building does have to get security badges and stuff, which is completely understandable with the state of the schools in the country. So, I mean, having all that, and then you get through all that stuff, and then it just seems like there's still red flags all the time. So, yeah, I mean, it just is one thing after the other, and you think you've done everything, and then it's, oh, but you didn't do this. So I know it sounds like everybody's kind of had that experience. And again, I know I also am a vice chair on the Wyoming Swimming Board that represents all of Wyoming. I mean, I know I've heard from other people just for access issues. I know we've been up to Casper before, and we bring an HOD meeting up there and champion Olympic athletes up there for all the kids. And sometimes they have access issues. I know I've heard from Laramie with a few issues that they're going on with right now. So I just think moving forward that they're talking about charging them fees over there. And I know the club does put money into that pool. And I don't even know, I know there's recreation districts, actual rec centers on the other side of the state. They don't always get into those pools. But I just think it would be better access across the state.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions for anybody? Anybody from committee? All right, thank you for your testimony. Anybody else like to testify on, give public input? Public input again. Nothing online, right? All right. One more time, anybody for public input? We'll close public input. Let's go through it. Page 1, any amendments? Page 2, that's where all the new language is.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just curious, as opposed to an amendment.
Go ahead, Representative Brown.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just curious on, so I worry about unintended consequences with subsection B. An itemized statement of the district's direct and incremental costs. Like, I could see this just going down a rabbit hole and school districts grabbing onto that and saying, okay, well, now we have to pay an accountant to figure this out. So that's additional time and just itemizing and going really, really deep into this. I can also see it being burdensome. And so I don't know. I see the reason for section B. I'm curious what the rest of the committee's thoughts are on that. I see Representative Lawley. I'm torn on subsection B being kind of a little bit onerous on both sides.
Representative Lawley, you have comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think we could say upon request. In other words, that the way it's written, it appears that, well, I guess it does say without, say, property without the request rental use of the property. I'm sorry. We could put in there that basically they can request that, but it's not required every time. The reason I believe it's important that something like this is in there is we've already heard testimony today that some people may be treated differently, and it's kind of hard to unwind. What are they doing, and are those costs being assessed the same way or not? But you really don't have the ability to look into that issue without some requirement upon a request providing that information, but there you go.
Go ahead, Representative Ocean. Andrews. Andrew Ocean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think the most important part of this bill is that they charge only the cost that they have incurred. And in order to charge only the cost that they have incurred, they'll have to figure out what those costs are. And section B just means that they then have to write it down. So I don't think this would be anything more than what they already have to do.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ryan. I'm sorry. Representative Berger.
Thanks. I know in my district, we figured out those costs. It takes a lot of work, and I appreciate all the testimony. I get it. We've done this. It takes a ton of work, and we still are going through this all the time. I'm a coach. Get it. You know, I run my teams and open gyms and open facilities all the time. I also competed in college, and I also wanted to try to charge kids to do a speed and agility stuff. And I couldn't charge because you can't charge in those facilities, but it took a lot. It takes a lot of talking to those local facilities. I've advocated too. I know where you're at. I just like to keep this issue at the local control. It takes a lot. I understand. Don't stop.
Further comments? So we're both thinking over here. What if we did something along an estimate that was a one-time estimate? Is that what you have in mind? Or are you working on?
Yeah, on the fly, I think it's gonna be a little tougher.
If section B was turned into an estimate, so that it was a one-time event and the estimate said it would cost you blank number of dollars per month, then is that sufficient? That's why I asked you up, Senator Brennan.
I see where it would feel like an estimate might make things easier, but I think it would be, I think the school districts a cost would be a better way to go.
I can see the school districts doing as Representative Brown did. They're gonna charge for every squirt of disinfectant, and they're gonna charge for every time the broom hit the floor and the wear and tear on the broom, and plus that guy's overtime, and what you're asking for will turn into what you're asking for. So it'll be a higher cost than any of us ever expected. Representative Obermuller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe it would also be the incentive to let them use it free.
Fine. Anybody else comments, questions? We have a good senator up here. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted some discussion on B and kind of like I said, I would.
Please, go ahead.
For all those people
Representative
out there,
Brown.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Landon.
Thank you. I appreciate the conversation. That's actually what I wanted. Because I do see it becoming an issue, but I also don't disagree with what Representative Obermuller just said. Maybe this becomes a situation where, they recognize the impetus behind this. And that is to just be nice. Let's play nice. So that's all I have on this, Mr. Chairman.
No, there isn't cured costs. I mean, you have janitorial staff and staff's working overtime or regardless, so they still have cost in it. We're ready for an amendment if you'd like, Representative Clauston.
Mr. Chairman, as somebody who coached for 14 years but was also a school board member, I feel bad for these people in this district. It makes me really appreciative of where I was. But hearing testimony on C, I mean, I can see this being a problem for other districts that are handling it the way they are right now. So I'm going to ask that we strike C on page 2.
Been moved and seconded that we move by Clausen, seconded by Provenza, that we strike item C, which is actually page 2, lines 20 and 21. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Representative Andrew.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my concern with that is if the fee is only supposed to reflect the cost, then if it was not uniform, someone would be, I don't know, either they wouldn't be fulfilling that or they would be making a profit or taking a loss. So this bill probably makes less sense if that's not there, because the whole point is to only charge the cost, which is going to be the same for similar use.
Representative Berger, go ahead.
I understand trying to do the uniform thing, but this is how I see costs changing, because at one elementary, if you have multiple elementaries, you just want to use their gym, one staff member, a custodial member, might have worked there for 30 years. Salary's probably a lot more. Where another elementary, that custodial member worked there maybe 2 years. Those salary differences are a lot. How do you make those up? We went through this. It is not easy, but it takes a lot, and it takes your local groups to go through all that. And I don't know where uniform is for each and every single district.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Representative Obermiller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The testimony on the reason for the uniform was that the baseball team didn't get charged more than the soccer team. It was for uniformity between the users, not between the buildings, I don't think. So that was the importance of the wording.
Okay, so anybody else have a comment on that? I'll throw out the comment. How about putting in a grandfather clause saying that all MOUs agreements in place by 7/21?
We're on a motion right now.
Oh, darn it. Okay, we have a question on the motion,
Question.
which is the strike item C.
Stroking?
We're striking it.
Okay.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Oh, show of hands, because I heard.
Aye.
All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Okay, those against? It passes. So now, if I may, I'd like to propose an amendment saying that we reinsert a new C saying that all MOUs and agreements in place as a 7/21 or 7/1/24 be effective or something, whatever that language is. I'm not a lawyer.
Mr. Chairman, can you give, if this is to be adopted, would you give Tanya the latitude to?
To put a grandfather clause in? Yes.
So I'll second that for discussion.
Okay, we'll discuss. Go ahead, Representative Lawley.
Well, I'm not sure, based on the testimony heard, that that actually helps this group of people because they don't have those agreements. So what you're doing is solidifying those that do and actually now making it harder for those that don't have some sort of memorandum of understanding. And so, and codifying in effect those that do. So I think it has the opposite effect of what, at least, I think this bill was intended to accomplish.
Let's draw it.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I guess,
Senator Berger.
I mean, our facility use agreements change all the time with every year because of what we've done in our district and those groups through the rec center, and just depends on how much things cost. It's just the way it goes, I guess.
All right. Go ahead, Representative Lawley.
Again, this is just a thought about whether we should put something in here about waiving the fee, and again, should be done in some kind of a equitable way, that, but that the districts can waive the fee, that They do that. You could argue they could still do that, but once we enter this space and set up some things, I think it might be good to acknowledge that they can waive fees. Because that's what we've heard testimony some districts are doing.
Your new section C.
Yeah, a new section C.
I just have to ask the question, how's that different from a grandfather clause?
Well, it's very different. A grandfather clause only applies to what already exists, or that you're saying, that they get what they have, and in the future, other people don't necessarily get that. This is saying that that waivers can be offered, because the district could read this and say, well, can we still, it's kind of a little bit about what some of the testimony we heard earlier. Do we have to now charge fees? Or can we assess, make an assessment, but waive, which districts are doing? And we would just clarify that they can waive fees. But we might want some language in there that they need to do so in an equitable fashion, and not waive some, but not others, that they need to have some, but it is very different legally than a grandfather clause, I will say that.
Do you have a second on your motion? Or is it discussion?
I just kind of put it out there, I didn't
make a
formal motion, but. That's true.
I have a discussion.
Does anybody have comments? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Andrews.
thank you. Thanks. I think the language is about regulating the charging of fees and is silent about free use or not charging fees. I think I don't think that's an issue because, starting in line 6, any rental fee charged by the district for the use of a school district property shall, we've put this language in there, again, to regulate when we do charge those fees.
Bird, go ahead.
I am for using these facilities because they're there. I wonder if we can start talking about it in the legislature about seeing about can we waive these fees and endure those costs from our end, to help communities that are small and all that, so they don't have to deal with these issues for their local districts, but we take on the costs. And maybe that's something to look at that in the interim. Recalibration and just say, we'll just look at it that way and just endure that cost as a state. I don't know, and hopefully you guys get insurance and all that, and we don't, but encourage using the facilities for these extra groups. I don't think anybody's against really totally saying this is our place and you can't use it. I don't think anybody's against that. It comes down to, again, those little costs, because everybody was asked to tighten up budgets a while ago, and that's what we were doing. I know that. It costs a lot.
Further comments? Do you have any comment, Senator Brennan?
Question.
Go ahead, Representative Brown.
I apologize for being late, Mr. Chairman, but Senator Brennan, I know what's going on here in this community, and clearly we see what's going on here. I am curious what else we've seen across the state, and I know you filed the bill, so I'm guessing you've probably done a little bit of the research. What have we seen across the state? Are there other districts that you have seen that are experiencing similar issues? And I apologize if this is a reiteration of something you've already explained.
It's good to reiterate it. Go ahead, Senator Brennan.
Thank you, Chairman Northrum, Representative Brown. I don't have exact numbers, but this has been a problem for many school districts and many groups throughout the state.
Committee, what's your pleasure? Anything else?
We've already moved it.
We've already moved it, so are you done? Question on the bill. Ashley, please take a roll call vote.
Mr. Chairman, on Senate File 84, school facilities use fees, Representative Allred?
No.
Representative Andrew? Aye. Representative Berger?
No.
Representative Brown,
Aye.
Representative Clouston,
No.
Representative Lawley,
Aye. Whoops, aye.
Representative Obermueller,
Aye.
Representative Provenza. No. Chairman Northrup.
Dandy, no.
4 aye, 5 no.
We'll make it part of the recalibration and we look at that coming up.
Good idea.
Yep.
Good idea.